In this video, we're going to walk you step by step exactly how we go about taking the artwork that we created in part 1 and taking that artwork and modifying it to such an extent that we can cut it out with our vinyl cutter to create this multi-layer heat press application that we would actually apply to our shirt. So just to give you an understanding of how this is going to go, this white object you see here would be the first thing that we would cut and heat apply to our shirt. Then we're going to add our black outline on top. So you can see it kind of line up just like that, okay? Then the next step would be to apply the red or the blue. It really wouldn't matter which we did first, but in this example we did red first. So let's put it on top and then talk about something that's real specific. When we lay it on top like this, you can see first of all that it looks great, and but more specifically, here's what I want to point out. We have this underlying black. So I'm going to double click on my black here so you can see this. See this line right there? So what's happening is because we put the black down first, you can see how the red is just slightly on top of the black. So it's totally covering up that black outline just by that much. And that is what gives us a nice clean look to the finished design. And then the same thing would be true with our blue. Okay, so we come over here on blue, and if we put blue right on top, delete this, you can see the same thing happens on blue. So what happens is when you get all done, the black outline is nice, it's consistent throughout the entire design, and likewise if we double click on black here, you'll see it. See how that comes in that much? So the blue is overlapping our black by that much. Okay, but because the blue is cut, it's revealing this black underneath. So that is kind of how this is working. So I just want to point that out to you because it is important that you understand what's really happening there. Okay, so that is the finished product that we would have after we apply those 4 layers of vinyl. So again, in this video we're going to be talking about how do we go about getting to that point, because when we created the original artwork, it's not really set at all for cutting purposes. Okay, so this is going to take what I would consider a fair bit of work, but it's understanding the process. It's not really the work involved, it's just understanding that process. So let me just kind of go walk you through this. So first things first, we have our original. Let's make a duplicate of it. And then let's start deleting elements. So for example, we know we don't need any color on our first layer, right? So we'll go ahead and get rid of black. Go ahead and get rid of all of our black bits and anything that's color. Just come in here and delete all of that. Okay, so there's phase 1. Now let's talk about phase 2. So here's phase 2. So we know we don't need phase 1 and phase 2, so we'll go ahead and get rid of that. And then what else don't we need in this phase? Well, in this phase we don't need any color, but we do need the outline. And if you remember, when we created our original artwork, all of our fills have this outline. Okay, so what we're going to do first of all is we're going to just select one of our fill objects. In this case, I'm going to select my hat. And actually in EasyStone we have kind of a neat feature that allows us to mark our hat and then say, okay, EasyStone, if you would please pick up all of the objects. So I just selected our entire design. If you would please pick up all the objects that have the same outline property as my hat. And if you remember, when we created the artwork originally in part 1, most of our design elements have the same exact outline. So we're going to say pick up all the design elements that match the same outline width and make a selection, which we now have. So here in our custom toolbar, we have this function called Convert Outline to Object. That's a CorelDRAW function. Under the Arrange menu, we have the same thing, Convert Outline to Object. But because we use it so often, we just threw it here on our custom toolbar. And again, you can download this custom workspace on our website, EasyStoneTemplates.com. Go into the design shop and click on the freebie section, and you'll find a custom workspace for CorelDRAW. And we do have a separate video as far as importing and setting up a custom workspace as well. But at any rate, we click on this button, and let me back up just a moment before we do this. Let me back up just a moment so we can understand what's really going to happen here. When we go into wireframe mode, do you see our hat? It has no thickness. Let's go back to enhance. See, we have this black outline. We can't see that black outline in this mode. So let's do this. Let's go back in there, select the entire design, outline width. So we'll select the entire design, create selection. So it makes another selection, and now watch what happens here. We'll stay in wireframe mode for this. Watch what happens here. As soon as I click on this button, bam. Now we see the width of that outline. Okay? So that's pretty cool stuff. Let me undo that. See, these are just that single line thickness, and then as soon as I hit this button, now it gives us that total line thickness. Okay? So let's go back to enhance mode and see what our next step is. So our next step then is to get rid of color. So like our hand here, we don't need that anymore, because the next step, remember, is just the outlines. So we're going to get rid of anything that has color. Get rid of it. Face color. Our hair, we're not going to get rid of. And the reason we're not going to get rid of it is because our hair is actually going to be black in the finished design. So we'll go ahead and change that to black. But we'll go ahead and get rid of our overalls from this face. We'll get rid of that piece. We'll get rid of our button. But I actually got rid of the outline. So let's, if we hold down our Alt key, it helps us select the appropriate piece there. We'll get rid of that and our little red piece, our little white piece, the little white in the eyes, we can get rid of that. Now these glints we're not going to get rid of. And the reason we're not going to get rid of them is because we're actually going to use this to cut a hole in our eyeball here. So select those two, click on trim, and then we can delete the little glint. Same thing here, select those two, we'll trim, and we get rid of our little glint. Okay, so it'll look like that. And then this we're going to get rid of the outline on. There we go. So now we have it looking like that. Okay, now here, I'm not exactly sure what's happening here. You can see that there. So let's break curve apart, I guess, and take this and give it a different color. So now that's pink, and I just want to do that just so I can see better what's happening here. So it looks like we've got several things going on here. So this outline, let's see here. Sometimes it's kind of hard to see what's going to go on here, but I think what's happening here is we have this that we don't need. I think that's the ticket. So let's go ahead and then this here and this here, we're going to choose the combine option. Now you see there, we've combined those two objects together, but it's still filled. Sometimes that'll happen. So what we'll do here is we'll grab our shape tool and choose this option to reverse curve. Now let's go back in. You won't really see anything happen when that happens, but watch what happens now when I go ahead and combine these two objects again. Let's go back to enhance mode. Now we get what we would expect to get, okay, which is that look. Alright, so now in this mode, you can see this has a little bit different color outline, so let's go ahead and make it black. There we go. So now in this phase, and I'm just going to take this artwork and push it over here a little bit. In this phase here, we have all of our outlines, but this is not in cuttable form. So let's go back into wireframe mode here and look at what I'm talking about. You can see that we have all these overlapping, intersecting lines. Look at this mess. See how our eyebrows and everything are just all these lines. Everywhere you see a line, our cutter's going to cut. So it's quite a mess right now. So we need to clean that up. And fortunately, we can do that quite easily. So I'm going to take my weed box and lock it down so we can't select it. But let's just begin by selecting our hand part here and holding the Shift key and selecting a couple of more parts. I'm just going to select a few. Now watch all these intersecting lines here. As soon as I click weld, see how those all kind of intersect, and now our cutter is going to cut properly. So we just keep adding, and we can add, you know, several at a time, or we could just do one at a time. And I'm just clicking on one, shift clicking on another. So now you can see this little piece of our hand down here. Shift key, click on another piece, weld it, and that intersection goes away. Here's another little detail line, weld it, and that little intersection goes away. Now you still see this line here. Well, what is causing that? Well, let's take a look. Oh, I see what's causing that. The hat. See? So because the hat is sharing the boundary. So let's grab our hat and our hand, and when we weld that together, see how that all cleans up, just like we want. So our medallion and our hat. Okay, didn't really see anything happen there yet, but you can see it's coming together. See, so now that is all nice and neat. Now, when you're welding these outlines together, I do like to do a few, go back and take a look and make sure it still looks the way I expect it to look, because it won't always. And then we have to go back in and fix things up a little bit. So let's go ahead and weld those two back together there, and weld those together there. And let's see what we got. Sometimes I move things out of the way and say, okay, I see what's happening here. So now we're going to grab our face and bring that together. And you can see now that's all nice and good. Our eyebrow. So you see how things are just kind of filling in there. So let's grab our detail line and our outline of our face, our eyebrow, our eye to the eyebrow. See there? Then we have this eye and its outline. See? Nice, clean. Then we have our mustache and our face outline. Cleans that up. Then we have our mustache and our mouth. And this piece of our mouth. You can see how that's all cleaned up now. Now their hair, right? We had our hair and the outline for our hair. We're going to just weld that as one object. Then take our hair and the rest of the outline and weld it. So you can see it's all cleaned up. Our arm and our hand. And it's all cleaned up. And just so you know, we could just take the whole kit and caboodle and weld it. And sometimes when you do that mass welding, sometimes it's fine. Like in this case, it turned out fine. Sometimes it doesn't. So, you know, if you can experiment and try it, and, you know, if you're happy with the results, great. It will save you a few steps from doing this piece by piece. But I really want you to understand what is actually happening here and what we're doing. And so now you can see that at every intersection here, see, there's no extra lines. And so this is going to cut out basically perfect. Now this is ready to cut. But I do want to show you one other thing here. When you're welding these outlines, sometimes CorelDRAW doesn't do a perfect job. So let's just double click on this. And see all these nodes? If I select them all, look at the bottom of the CorelDRAW. 4,967 nodes. Ouch. That's a whole lot of nodes. And so when you have all these nodes selected, we can come up here and click on Reduce Nodes and watch that number drop. So we're just going to let CorelDRAW figure it out for us. 297. Very reasonable for the amount of artwork we're going to have to do. And all those extra nodes are important because our cutter is going to have to recognize every one of those nodes. And so this is going to cut out much, much quicker, much better with 297 nodes than almost 5,000. Right? So, all right. So now let's go back and look. So you can see what we've kind of created here in that what we've created here is a really good looking outline ready to cut all by itself. And you could, you know, cut that out and use that as a design by itself if you really wanted to. Now, I do see a couple of issues that when we did that kind of group mass welding, we created a couple of issues for us. We don't want to panic, but we do need to fix it. So let's unlock our weed box and make a duplicate of this and show you what we did wrong here. Right now, Mario has a black eye. See here? This eye has this kind of void, and this eye doesn't. And so what we need to do is fix that first. And so all we're going to do is right-click on our outline and choose Break Curve Apart. And now it fills in, this kind of silhouette. But if we go into wireframe mode, we can see this little glint, this little void that we need for this over here. So let's come over here and let's just double click on the outline here. When you double click on that outline, it takes you into the shape tool. Or we could have clicked on the shape tool as well. But we're going to delete the void because right now it's there. Let me just show you that so you understand what I'm getting at. When we go back to enhance mode, it looks solid, but it's actually there. Okay? And you'll see that happen quite frequently in CorelDRAW. And there's a reason for it. I tell you what, I wonder if we were to, I don't know, let's go back to enhance mode there. There you go. So, okay, see, that's even something I just thought, I wonder if this would work. So, anyhow, so you can see that right now it's a solid, right? And so when we go into the wireframe mode, it's there. So what we can do is grab our shape tool and just select the nodes. So there's one, shift, select this one, and shift, select this one. So now we have the nodes of just that void. See this arrow right here? What that is telling us is the direction of the curve. So when you're in this shape tool, we have some nodes selected. I didn't know this would work until I just tried it. So when you're in the shape tool, we have this function here called reverse direction. And so when we click on that, watch what happens with this arrow. Reverse direction. See how the arrow is now going in the opposite direction. So when that happens, though, go back over here to enhance mode. Notice now that the void is there, like we had expected to be. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I do want to just go ahead and show you, however, what I was going to do originally, just to give you an idea until I tried that. So I even learned something new here. So what I was going to do originally is I was going to delete the glint. I was going to delete this little void area altogether. And then over on this one, we had that piece. Let's go into wireframe mode. So there's that piece that we need, right? What I was going to do is I was just going to double click on it. You can see that arrow pointing to the left. I was going to reverse the direction. And then what I was going to do is take that piece and my weed box, put it right on top, and I use my weed box for perfect placement of that void. And then all I was going to do, let's go back into enhance mode here. That piece is sitting there. See that? I was going to take both of those pieces then and combine them and achieve the same thing. So obviously that was more work involved in doing that than just selecting the individual nodes, hitting the reverse direction, and correcting that little issue. So anyhow, I just wanted to point that out. Alright, so let's go ahead and delete this. There's one minor little issue, and that is this little detail on the button got lost. It's no longer there. If we go into wireframe mode, you can see that little detail is not there, but the little detail is right there. So we're going to go ahead and, again, use our weed box for perfect placement. And now you can see that little detail is there. Alright. So now we can go ahead and move on to our next phase. This is where things start to get a bit muddy, if you will. And I want to walk you through this There's really no really quote unquote easy way about it. You may have to watch this a couple of times over to get an understanding of what we're really trying to do. But bear with me, just follow through, and like I said, you may have to watch it several times over to get at what we're trying to accomplish here. So now in wireframe mode, again, we can see that our outlines are now all going to cut perfectly. So that's good. Our next thing that we're going to do then is we're going to take this outline, and I tell you what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and just combine that outline. So now when I move it, you can see it all moves as one. So what we're going to do here is take our artwork, we'll make a duplicate of it here, and we're going to get rid of elements that we don't need. So for example, we don't need stage 1, so we'll get rid of that. We don't need the fill of our hand. Actually, I see what we got to do here. We got to get rid of our outlines altogether. So we're going to get rid of our outlines because we don't need our outlines anymore. And if we go into wireframe mode, we need to get rid of all those detail lines that we added individually. So now we just have a piece of our hand, right? And down here we have all these detail lines of this hand. We want just the main pieces of the design. Let's go back into enhance mode here. So we don't actually need our hands at all for this example. So we'll get rid of those. Now for this, the medallion, we need to cut a hole into our hat piece. So we'll select the two and we'll hit trim, and then we'll hit delete, and you can see now we've actually cut a hole in our hat, which is what we want. This piece of our hair we can actually just delete altogether. And then also we can delete any of our black pieces. So let's delete that black piece and this one and this one. We're going to delete our eyeballs for this example. All of our eyeball pieces, we'll go ahead and get rid of those. We'll delete our mustache. And for here, we're going to actually cut a hole. And then we can actually delete that piece. And then for the red, we're going to cut a hole as well. And we won't delete it. We'll just keep that there. And then this red piece that's sitting on top of our overalls, we can trim our overalls. Right, so there's our red piece. But we need our red piece, so we'll leave that there. But you can see this right here. We'll go ahead and clean that up. That was left over from our trimming option there. So we'll go ahead and leave that. Let's go into wireframe mode and see what we can see here. So our overalls, it looks like right now, we'll go ahead and get rid of this piece. So there we go. That's just still that one piece. And then down here, we can get rid of that and get rid of that because those were just detail lines. So yeah, that's all kind of coming together quite nicely. Alright, so let's go back to our enhance mode. Now, let's see what this is. Yep, we're going to take our button and we're going to trim our overalls. We don't need the button. It's going to be white in our finished product. And this, we're going to trim our overalls too. So we don't need it. And again, we don't need our black pieces, so we'll get rid of that. Okay? So this is kind of what we're left with. And in fact, we don't need our face because our face is going to become white. So we can go ahead and delete the face too. So this is really what we're left with. And what we're going to do here for this example is we're going to go ahead and group these together. I just hit Control G after I selected them. And then we're going to take our outline and put it right on top of our fills. And delete our extra weed box. Okay, so now when you do that, it looks correct. And what we're actually going to do then is we're going to take our black outline here and we're going to select our hat group and overall group, and we're going to trim. And then we're going to delete our black outline because we don't need that anymore. So what we've done is we've trimmed. You can see we've created this void in our artwork now, just like in our hat. See how we trimmed out the eyebrows and all that stuff. So that's exactly how we want it to look. Now, let me explain, because this is where things get a little bit crazy. Let me explain what we have to do now. This outline that we have, that we created to begin with, we needed that outline to trim our pieces that are going to go on top of the outline. But now we need to modify our outline, and here's why we need to modify the outline. Let me see if I can explain this. So if I put my red, let's go ahead and, we need to grab. If I put my color on top of my outline, this is what we're going to get. Looks perfect, right? But here's where the issue is. Double click on red. Actually, I guess we have to ungroup it first. Double click on this red object. See where that outline is? I don't know if you can see that there, but see where that node is and that outline? Now double click on black. Notice that the black and the red outline are exactly identical. And this is why we need to modify the black so that the red is sitting on top of the black instead of them sharing the exact same outline. Because when we go to create the shirt, that's not going to work. We cannot have it be exactly the same. So that's what we need to modify, is so that it's an overlap boundary and not a shared boundary, if you will. Okay, so that's what the end goal is there. So let me just kind of explain to you how we would go about doing this. There are a variety of ways to go about doing this, and I'm going to show you what I think makes the most sense. But I kind of have a good understanding of CorelDRAW as well. So take this piece of the hat, just the top piece. What we're going to do is we're going to make the black completely solid underneath that. So watch what I'm talking about. Double click, that takes us into our shape tool, and all these nodes on the inside of that one area, let's just go ahead and delete. So we'll just come around, delete all of those, and just that one area, once we're done here, will be a solid. Okay, so you see that there? So now if we put this red on top, like so, we have the same exact look. The only difference is we no longer have this shared outline. So when we double click on the red, there's the outline, but the black, so the red is totally sitting on top of the black. Okay, but because we used the original outline to trim our red shape, it leaves this appearance of a gap. All right, so that's kind of what we need to do for all of these colored pieces. We just need to come in here. Let's just delete those. And anywhere there's a colored piece, we need to come in here and just make that solid. Okay, so this piece right here, we'll do the kind of exact same thing. We'll just come in here and we'll delete all these nodes. And it seems kind of backwards, and that's why it just seems kind of odd when you're going about doing this and really understanding how overlapping these objects on top of one another will get us the look that we're looking for. So it seems weird because it seems like we're losing detail, but because we're going to put these colors on top, and because of the way we trimmed our colors, we still have the same detail. See, it still looks exactly the same. And that's the key point to make there. So just like here with our arm, where our arm goes, we're going to just make that a solid. So we'll just come in here and make this area solid. So then our arm will sit perfectly right inside there, and it'll be just fine. Okay? So now the next thing we need to do is the area that takes up the overalls here, we need to make that a solid. So we have this red piece that's going to go in here. So we'll go ahead and delete this. And then this area is going to be filled in with blue. So we'll go ahead and delete it. Okay. And then let's just take a look at that just so we can get an understanding of what's happening there. So let's take these pieces and set it right on top. And then we'll delete the extra weed box. And so you can see how that red piece is just sitting right in there, and there's that blue piece that's sitting on top of that solid area. Okay? So just want to illustrate that point. And then same thing here with our red piece for our mouth. We'll go ahead. Right now they have a shared boundary. So we'll delete that, and now our red piece will sit right in there like it's supposed to. And then the next thing we need to do is the last piece of our overalls here. So we'll just come in here and we'll delete this area. You can just double click on a node, and that will delete it as well. So if you just have a few nodes to delete here and there, just come in here and delete them that way. And sometimes it's hard to get at them just like we want. See that little tiny triangle there? Well, if we look over here, you see this little tiny triangle here. So let's go ahead and dispose of it, because right now they do share a boundary. I'll take care of that. Okay. So now that takes care of that. Now, the next part is a little bit tricky here. So let's go ahead and delete this area. Be careful when you're selecting your nodes that you're only selecting the nodes that you want to select, not, just everything. So there we go. So now that is taken care of, and we have that. Okay. So now if we take all of our colored artwork, our colored fill pieces, let's set them all on top of our black, and let's see what we did there. I don't think we got our colored pieces for some reason. Let's try that again. Nope. What's happening here? Are these locked? No. Alright, we'll try to duplicate it again. There we go. So then we'll delete that. And now you can kind of see what we have there. So everything looks pretty good. But we do have kind of a situation right here with this button that we created. So we'll have to fix that. But otherwise, everything else is sitting in there like I expected. So let's go ahead and delete this. We'll delete all of our colors, and let's take a look in wireframe mode what's happening here, because just looking at it, it's tough to tell what's really happening there. What I think I'm going to do for simplicity's sake is let's just delete that shape to begin with. Alright, go back to enhance mode here, and then what we'll do here is we'll set our blue back on top. So this is actually connected to something. What's it connected to? See how big this selection is here? It's connected to something. I don't know what. But let's ungroup all and regroup. Something was weird happening there. Alright, so let's set this on top. And let's delete our weed box. So everything is looking correct, but this button. And so let's go and take a look and see if we can borrow this button from another area, another part of our artwork here. And that's why I always have all these duplicates. So let's just set this right on top. And there's our button piece here, right here. Let's get rid of our outline. And you can see now how big our outline is. So now we have a situation here. Okay, I think I see what's going on here. Our button, let's go back into wireframe mode. Yes, our button, our button has an outline to it. So if I hit shift, hit this button here, convert to outline. Now you can see that what our outline is, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to trim our button piece back, and we're going to get rid of this outline now that we just created. Let's see here. Let's go into enhance mode here so I can see what's happening a little bit better. Let me undo this a little bit. So we're going to, okay, so what we did was we converted the outline to an object, and now it has this weird solid to it. So we're going to switch over to our shape edit tool, and we're going to take this inside one, selecting all these nodes that make up the inside, and make sure they're all selected here. And we are going to reverse the curve direction. So now we see it as we should. Now that we see it as we should be able to trim our button piece back. And it's not letting us. Why is it not letting us trim our button? It's very frustrating when what should work doesn't. So let's isolate this and take a look at it all by its lonesome here. So now this is just one piece, and then we have our button, which is another piece. Let's go ahead and just reverse the curve direction of our button, and maybe maybe that will help us in our, because what we want to do is we want to make this button just a little bit smaller. So again, we'll trim our button piece, and on our button piece goes away. And I'm not really, let's see here, what if we were to, so I think this is part of our problem actually right here, because there's just, it seems weird, there's all these extra nodes here that it doesn't seem like we should have. Yes, that's where the problem is, right there. I suspected as much. So now we should be able to trim. Let's see if we can now trim what we need to trim back. Ah, yes, success. So there's always a little node there. When something doesn't go correct, there's usually a problem with it. So now we know what the problem is. Let me just illustrate a little bit better what the problem is here. So let's go back into enhance mode. Right here, these, you see, anytime you see this, it looks weird, right? There's just a glob of arrows going every which direction. So the first step would be to delete the glob. And so we did, but when we deleted the glob here, then that caused a problem. You see that? We get a weird result. So then I looked up here and I said, oh, this option to join is highlighted, and that means that there's nodes here that aren't joined. So when I clicked on that, then that joined those nodes. You can see that is no longer grayed out. So now, so what that told me is now we have a valid shape where before we didn't. And so now if I trim my button, now I still have my button shape. So now we can delete this outline. And now we can use this button to trim, because underneath it is solid, and we don't want it solid. We want it transparent like this one. So we'll go ahead and select them both, hit that trim function, and now we have a hole, just like we need. Okay, so yeah, it seems like a lot of work, and that's because it is, in understanding how all that goes together. So now, we didn't modify our original artwork, so let's just go ahead and delete our artwork. Now, this outline, this black, is kind of more or less what we need. So let's just move this version out of the way, and this is now the most current version. But we're not done. We could be done in a way, but we're not completely done. Let me explain. This is going to be solid white. Then we're going to put black on top of white. And then on top of black, we're going to put blue and red. And so what happens is we're building and building and building all these layers. Heat press vinyl is going to become fairly thick. And, you know, you may want that, you may not want that. So probably what I would do is, to avoid the design getting too thick on the shirt, is see all this solid area of black? We're going to fill that really with red. So let me just show you how this is going to work now. So when I put red and blue on top, the result is exactly what we would expect it to be. But now all this area of red also has black underneath it, which also has white underneath it. So it becomes fairly thick there. So what I would do then is just go the extra mile here and create a gap in this black solid area in a certain way that is going to make sense. So let me show you what we're going to do. We're going to make a duplicate of this, of our original fills, and then we're going to take all of these and we're going to group them together, which they already are actually. But then what we're going to do is set this right on top, delete our weed box, and just zoom in tight here. What we're going to do is we're going to grab our interactive contour tool and we're going to click on our red shape and drag to the inside. See that line that appears? We're just going to click and drag till we get the result that we want. We want it contoured to the inside, but not necessarily that much. Okay, so you can see there, we've contoured to the inside there. All that looks good, but it doesn't work correctly in this upper hat area. So here's what we're going to do. Let's do this instead. Let's ungroup this and let's tackle piece by piece. Actually, we can tackle one piece and then copy the amount of contour to all the other pieces. So we're going to come in here to contour. So when we work with our hat shape, let's see, what did we do here? Thought I ungrouped this. What do we got? I see. So these two pieces are one. So let's break those apart. There we go. So now, we'll delete the M. Now let's try and contour our hat piece. Well, I'm not sure I like it won't let us contour the way the amount I want. So what we're going to do here is see if we can't. And I'm not sure why that is. So let's undo this. See, sometimes things just drive you crazy. So let's go contour. We can contour to the inside. Let's just minimize this for a moment. And let's hit apply. That's too much. So let's go 1 millimeter. See what kind of, no, that's too much. So 0.25 of a millimeter. Offset too large. Alright, here's what we're going to do. I think I know what will help us in our quest here, and that is to make the whole artwork larger, like it would be on a shirt. And then let's try to use our contour tool. Then we can probably get the result. Yes, that's the ticket. See, so we want this overlap. So you see that? So what we're going to do here then is we're going to copy that amount of contour to everything. So we select our shape, select our contour tool, copy from this shape, and that gives us the same amount of contour. So all the way around. Copy from one of these. We're going to copy from this. So all of our shapes here, all of our colors, we're going to copy that same amount of contour to every other color, which we've done now. So now what we're going to do is just right click on it, break contour, right click, break contour on all our shapes. Break contour, break contour, break contour. When we're doing a contour, we have two pieces. So let's see here, break contour. We have the original piece and then we have the contoured piece, right? So now we're going to delete our original pieces here, which in this case is our blues and our red, and leave the white contour for everything all the way around. So we'll delete the red, delete the red. Okay, so now these white pieces here, that is what we're going to use to trim. Okay, so let's go to our shaping docker and trim, and let's not leave the original. Okay, so we're going to trim our black outline, and you can see what we got there. Okay, and again, I'm just going to come in here and kind of select these pieces and trim our black outline. And we're going to trim our black outline. And we're going to trim our black outline. So now where those white areas were, we've cut that out. So now there's that much less material that we're going to have color on top of color on top of color. Now this little void here, I'd probably just go ahead and delete that. It's not that much, so we'll go ahead and delete that. Okay, so now there's our original colors right here. So now if we go back in and copy our colors directly on top of our outlines, still looks the way we expect it to look, but watch this. When I double click on my black outline, see how much that comes inside the color? So that's how much the color is going to overlap. So when we put our black down and then we put red on top of black, that's how much the red is going to overlap the black. Overlap the blue. See that little bit of overlap there on the blue? See here? The red is going to overlap just that much. Instead of having a full color underneath, it's just going to have this little piece that it's going to be covering up. Okay? So that is the finished product. So now we have our original white. We have the black that's going to sit right on top of white. And then we have our two color pieces. So we can just delete this one. And then we'll ungroup. So this will delete the red here. And ungroup this. Alright, so it's going to be like that. So we're going to lay down the white. Just quick few second press. We're going to lay down the black. Quick few second press. We're going to lay down our red on top. Quick few second press. And then finally we're going to lay down the blue. And we're going to do a full press time on blue. On that final color we'll do a full press time. And then you'll have your finished shirt. So let's go ahead and build this just so you can see that the artwork is correct. So let's go ahead and just take our finished artwork, make a duplicate, and all we're going to do is just set everything right on top. So we'll set this one on top, then we'll set this one on top, and we're using these weed boxes to line everything up, and then we'll set this one on top. Then we'll start the reveal. We'll delete a weed box, and finally, the piece de resistance. Delete the final one. Ta-da! There is the finished product. So you can see all these voids did what we would expect them to do. There is actually one piece missing, and that's this little glint. Let's see in the wireframe mode. Yep, it's definitely gone. But this little glint right here. So what we'll do here is let's break this one apart and borrow this little detail line here. Got lost in the shuffle somewhere. So we'll put that in its place and go back to enhance mode there so we can get this position where we want it. So now let's go back into wireframe mode, and you can see that right there. So that's the red covering up just a sliver of that black outline. The red in the mouth, that inside line, that's where the black outline is. So you can see that's kind of how everything's going to line up and work really well, and obviously give us our finished design the way we want it to be. So maybe I'll move this down here. So then what we'll do here is we'll use the weed box to place that, so that keeps that little glint there, and that becomes the finished product. So anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the process. It is kind of an involved one, but once you understand the process, it's really not that bad. Thanks for watching.